Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the one, the only Tom The Suit Forst. Tom, how you doing today?
Good, John. How are you?
I'm doing well, Yeah, so that was Women of the World, which is one of your singles off of your new album, On Fire. Tell us a little bit about that song for us.
Sure. This is an album that actually is kind of the brainchild of producer Paul Nelson. And I say kind of because it was collaborative. But he is a Grammy-winning producer, and he's famous for being in the Johnny Winter Band for years, and he produced Johnny Winter's last two albums.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing stuff there.
It's a good album. I actually am using one of Johnny Winter's amps on about three of the tunes.
Really?
On 10, by the way.
Say again?
On 10.
On 10?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, he made me do it, and we didn't use any pedals on a couple of, but it was in an enclosed room.
Really?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it was great.
That's amazing. And
yeah, the album is different because although it's blues, it's more of a Joe Bonamassa kind of blues.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's blues rock. Got some political songs, got the typical I Lost My Baby songs, and it has some real, I think some songs that have some deep meaning as well.
Right. Well, you definitely can hear that throughout. Shifting gears just a little bit, I want to talk about who you are for the viewers who may not know, or the viewers who do know but want to know more. I want you to talk about, I think the biggest thing that we should talk about is tell us the story behind why your name is Tom The Suit Forst.
Absolutely. My son is a professional musician in San Francisco, right. And he used to have a punk band in the city, in Brooklyn.
Right.
And he had me show up one day with his punk band, and the whole crowd was like going crazy. The place was jammed. And he said, I want you to wear your suit that you used to wear to work. So I wore a blue jacket and, gray slacks. And he said, I just want you to stand there. And then when I tell you to play, I want you to go nuts. And I did. And he coined the suit, and the audience wouldn't let me off the stage. They kept screaming the suit.
Wow.
And the reason he did that is because I was a corporate executive for 25 years.
Wow.
And the day that my wife paid the last college tuition for my last child, I quit.
That's amazing.
Yep. I gave him 6 months' notice, and I went full-time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, wow. If that's not inspiring, I don't really know what is. I mean, that's dedication to music right there, I think. I mean, to stop working as a corporate executive and to go over and say, hey, I'm going to be a musician. I mean, tell us about the transition there. I mean, was it just, hey, I'm going to be a musician now, where do I go next? Or were you thinking about it for a while? Or was it something that you always wanted to do? Or tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. It's not as simple as it sounded, because I was a touring musician as a young man.
Right.
So I toured, came back, became a first grade school teacher, quit that, became corporate guy, did that for 25 years.
Wow.
So I always played. Even if I was traveling, I always made it home to the Smoky Club,
Right.
But it was always in my plan.
Right.
To do this full-time again, and that's what I did. That's
amazing, yeah. So, and then you were planning an album then, or have you had albums in the past, or is this just kind of, a cultivation of everything that you've been working on in your whole life, this new album that's out?
Well, it's a better story, I guess, if it was the second one, but actually I have been doing albums throughout that time. I do a lot of albums with other musicians.
Right.
And I do a lot of studio stuff.
Right.
So it wasn't that big of a transition, but I will say, if anybody out there's thinking about doing this, man, it's not the wisest fiscal move, I'll tell you that.
And I believe that makes sense, but why is that?
Well, it's just tough to make a living, and if you're going to do this, you're doing it for the love of music.
Right.
You're not doing it so that you become instantly rich. Now, you can build a career, and I actually am building a career because I'm building an audience.
Right.
But it's taken me 8 years, because I quit 8 years ago. So it's taken me 8 years to get to this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're definitely moving along. I mean, you can see your fan base has definitely grown to the point where, people know who you are, and, you're making tracks that are, I mean, they're amazing. I mean, they work so well. And I think that's such a great thing to have. You have that background of being a musician, of having those expertise, and then you can kind of put this piece of artwork together that I think people can really relate to. So, and on top of that, you have this great story. I love the suit aspect. I think that appeals to such a different demographic, maybe even without even trying. I mean, this idea of that I'm going to be a musician because I love music is something that maybe is lost, now in in the world of social media and technology. So, I mean, it's really exciting to see that. So, and it's very, it's an organic style. It's an organic thing. You're just like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. There's no other real thought process besides I've always loved to do it, and I'm going to do it. So I love that.
Yeah, you know what? That is absolutely true. I don't even do the normal club scene.
Right.
I don't even want that money. What I want is to have an audience that's big enough and really is interested in new music.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. That's just, that's what makes it unique, is the fact that you're still putting out new music. And I think a lot of it, too, is that you have these kind of, as you mentioned, Joe Bonamassa, these older influences of blues rock. I mean, you don't hear a ton of blues rock, and to kind of hear it again, I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of blues rock, and I listened to a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan, which was like Texas blues rock and things like that. So, being able to hear this again and knowing that there are people making fresh music like this, I think is an exciting feeling, because it's not just here are the hits, and I think, you didn't just try to adapt, you made your own style and you are going with it, and that's great. And I think that's something that's gonna, again, resonate, and it is resonating. You're not playing the clubs, you're playing people who are focused on music. You're not playing, I'm gonna be drowned out by people drunk talking,
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's really effective. I love that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now talk about your influences. I know you mentioned Joe Bonamassa, but tell us, you've been doing this for a very, a while, so tell us, who's inspired you along the way?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because everyone who hears me play starts to talk about the old blues guys.
Right.
And I actually don't like the old blues guys. I think they were good for their time, but I got interested in blues around the 70s, so guys like Mike Bloomfield from Electric Flag. Not everybody knows that group, but boy, if you check it out, there are some heavyweights on that album.
Right.
Those albums. Guys like him, so more of the electric side, like you say, a Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of guy, a high energy rock, a little more meat to the words.
Right.
Because if you know traditional blues, it's "I left my baby."
Of course.
I left my baby, and then boy, I'm really sad because I left my baby.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mine is a little different. I try to add a little story and depth to the music.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, some traditionalists hate.
Right. Well, that makes sense. I mean, traditional blues, like you mentioned, it's very cutthroat, very structured. It's very three different thoughts arranged into one, or maybe two thoughts over and over again, repeated. So, but you can definitely hear that. I mean, in your music, I think, you definitely have more, like you said, depth, I think, into your songwriting, absolutely. And I think, but you can still hear, I think, those blues influences maybe in the style, because it's not, maybe just not rock and roll and it's not blues. It's somewhere where it just works and it's great. It has those moments where, you feel this kind of blues rock, but then there's moments where you feel this rock and you can feel the heaviness of the solo and things like that. So, which I think works really well. I mean, it's great. It's not, I think a lot of people, a lot of blues artists who are just traditional blues artists, B.B. King being one he's an amazing artist, but, he never changed, he never adapted really to what was going on, and that's why he's amazing. That's why he's great. But, I mean, he was playing this very structured blues, and to hear on a record these kind of influences along with other influences that kind of pull from rock, I think it's so much more contemporary and so much more important, I think, now. And I think that's something, people need to hear. There's this lack of attention I think people have now, and I think being able to have those kind of high action, like you said, moments in the song, I think is something that people can immediately relate to. So,
I appreciate that, and I will also say that this is such a hot political and time of turmoil that it's almost, I believe it's almost shirking your responsibility not to write something about what's going on.
Absolutely. I think, as musicians, even myself, I mean, writing music that's relevant and has purpose, I think is something that, like you said, you have a responsibility at this point. And we're supposed to be artists putting music out, and that's supposed to be influencing people. Well, you have to address what's going on. I mean, that's even the greatest music of all time. I mean, it references what's going on politically. And I know, and you did that a lot on this record. One that we played right before our interview, and I know we talked briefly about it, but I do want to go back to it, is Women of the World. I want you to talk to us about that song. I want you to tell us why you wrote it and why it's important.
Yeah, that is my favorite song on the album, and it actually secretly may be why I wrote the album. Although I have to say, this particular song was written by Gary Yule, who has been my writing partner for about 40 years.
Right.
Unfortunately, he just passed away.
Oh, wow.
So, I'm stricken with grief.
Right.
On the other hand, I'm thrilled that I'm able to get a song that was very important to him out there.
Right.
If you listen to my songs, I hope you will find that I'm not preaching and I'm not asking people to think like me. I'm asking people to think, period.
Right.
So even Women of the World isn't saying, you should be voting for this person or this ideology. It's saying simply, hey, men have been running the world now for a millennium.
Yeah.
And where has it gotten us? What would happen if women were more in the limelight and more in control?
Yeah.
Not because all women are great, but women as a group, in my experience, think differently.
Yeah.
And they're not so egocentric. They're more what makes the most sense.
Right.
At least and again, this is in my view, and this song is simply a question, what would happen if we just let them do it?
Right.
And by the way, just so everybody knows, I was never talking about Clinton. I was never talking about a person at all. I was just talking about an idea.
Right. Yeah, and I think how you mentioned the delivery, this isn't saying, hey, go, agree with what I have to say. This is what I think, and it's right. I think listening to the song, there's this, it's a rhetorical song. It's rhetorical. There's a question going on, right. and it's asking people to say, hey, what if? And there is that what if. I mean, people think about that all the time in music. And again, and coming from, a man making the song is also, I think, equally as effective in terms of people actually listening and saying, hey, shit, he might be right. I mean, I think that's really important. Having that kind of, one, that the angle, the view that you have, and two, how you effectively do that. It gives it not only relevance, but it's that responsibility. Like, hey, we need to be thinking about this because look at what's going on. And again, it's not one side or one person's fault. It's just look at what's going on. What if we were to give women as a group a chance, and in their thinking and considering that, So, I love that song. I love how relevant it is. It's one of the ones, I even mentioned how I was around during the creation of it, not have anything to do with it, but I was there. So I will say that, I have a definite relationship with this song, and I really do enjoy it. So,
you know what? Until you mentioned it, I never thought of this. The person who wrote the song, and if anyone's thinking about this song, I just thought of this. He was a self-made millionaire, plus he was a Mormon.
wow.
And Mormons, as you know, generally it's a patriarchal kind of
Right.
circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to write this, you would not expect that. So I just never ever thought of it until now.
Yeah. Wow. That's even better. Wow.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that that's the perspective. It's just so great, and it's great that you're carrying that out and playing that at shows. I mean, think about how many people you can touch and think about how they may even perceive the song. I mean, it's great. It's a great way to go, and I love it. And I love,
Thank you.
I'm going to continue playing that song here on the show, and I want to continue to support that because that idea is something that, we all kind of have to listen to and think about,
Right.
Okay, so, and again, shifting gears here, I want to talk about your tour. You've been touring around Connecticut and, the tri-state area, if you will, over the past couple of months, and you are playing on Thursday, you said, I'll let you finish the sentence there.
Yeah, I'm playing at the Carver Center in the afternoon
Right.
for a telethon.
Yeah.
Really a good telethon. This is for education in the Norwalk, Connecticut area, which is great. It's going to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of my record company, which is that I'm with, which is the Factory Underground. And then in the evening, I'm rushing over to Stamford, Connecticut, playing at the Fez, which is a really nice music venue.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, I do play a lot where I do play a lot, more even in the city, because I'm playing at Delancey in New York.
Yeah, on the 25th, right?
Oh, yeah, you know better than I do.
Well, that's my job. I have
also,
to research you,
Yeah, no, that's good. Maybe I should do some research.
You don't want to do research on me. Let's keep it one-sided here.
My wife of 41 years will always say, "Where are you this weekend?" And I always say, "I really don't remember." Go look,
There you go.
But I play a lot in New York State itself, like upstate.
Yeah, Poughkeepsie and Peekskill, right?
Yeah, I do a lot of that. Not only do I play with my own band, Tom The Suit Forst band, but I also play with Jason Gisser band, which is a phenomenal group out of upstate.
Right.
So I do a lot with them and do a lot of my own stuff. I'm at the Infinity in a couple of weeks with the Hollywood All-Stars, which are just an amazing band.
Right, in Hartford?
Yeah. That's right. That's the one in Hartford. It's
okay.
a big venue, really nice.
Yeah.
I do a lot of places that are mainly music venue types, like Black Eyed Sally's, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
I play Daryl's house a lot.
Yeah, Daryl's house is great.
Oh, I love it. It's my favorite place. It's a very, very good place to play. I've always wanted to play there, actually, secretly, if we're going to go off the record. Well, you know what? If you see me and you just glance quickly, I look like Daryl Hall. Yeah, I got that.
Agree with that.
I got that look. So occasionally, and if you're really a beautiful woman, I say yes.
Love that.
Yeah.
That goes right back to the boxers and briefs question, which we still have not gotten to, but we may have to at some point.
Well, if I say the words commando, does that hurt at all?
I don't know. I don't know if it hurts.
Okay.
I don't know if it hurts or helps at this point.
Well, any women out there, I'm kidding.
Maybe. But great. So your next show coming up, you said it was this Thursday. We have the telethon at the Carver Center. And the last note I want to talk about is you mentioned the Factory Underground. I do want to mention them, and I do want to talk to you a little bit about them. So tell me a little bit about the Factory Underground. Yeah, it's funny how you think of serendipity. Things happen even when you don't expect them. My drummer is a guy called Big Thirsty. He lives in Norwalk. Mm-hmm. And the bassist lives in Harlem. Mm-hmm. So we figured, gee, you know what? Norwalk's in the middle because I live in the Hartford area. Right.
So I said, all right, let me check. So I called around, and I said, hey, there's this place you can rehearse, $25 an hour, Factory Underground. So we went there, and we were there for months.
Right.
And then one day I said, hey, who's your photographer? And they told me, and I said, well, I want to get some shots done. And at the same time, my producer, Paul Nelson, said, you really should do some work at the Factory Underground. And I said, well, I know that place. So everything, all the stars came together. They did pictures, they did videos. Most of my recording was done at another recording studio, but as you saw it, like people in, not people in the street, Women of the World, I redid the vocal because I just wasn't happy with it. And they do a great job there. So it's a recording studio. It is a PR group, and they're a record company.
Right. Great.
So at the same time, I got picked up by them, and they do distribution and things like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definite shout out to them and the Carver Center for the telethon on Thursday, and we'll see you there at around 5 p.m., you said?
Yeah, it's about 5 p.m., yeah.
Great. So for all of you guys listening, we have Tom The Suit Forst at the Carver Center at 5 p.m. in Norwalk, Connecticut. And then we have, or was that at the Carver Center or is that at Factory Underground? It's the Carver Center.
It's actually at the Carver Center.
Okay, great. So it's at the Carver Center. And then we have Tom. He's going to rush over to the Fez in Stamford, Connecticut. And he's going to be playing at 7 p.m. So if you guys can catch him,
the full band,
the full band set, and you're playing by yourself at the Carver, right?
Yeah, Carver, I'm doing a solo gig. Yeah. Great.
And then just dates after that, we have you in Peekskill, New York, at 12 Grapes on March 18th at 7. Right. And then the Delancey, you said, in the city on the 25th at 7 p.m. as well. Great time, 7 p.m.
Yeah. And then, no, that's a real good time. And then on the 31st, I'm at
Infinity in Hartford.
Music Hall in Hartford.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun show.
That's a great show. That's gonna be a great show. Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming on today. We're gonna leave off by playing your "Women of the World." We just want to play it one more time for the viewers. I guess it's listeners. It's not really viewers because they can't see me. So I gotta correct myself. That's rough because someone's gonna give me an email and they're gonna be like, "They're not viewers, John. They're listeners." And I'm like, "All right."
Can I give my website?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's www.tomthesuitforst.com, and that's Tom the Suit SUITFORST.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, John.
All right. Thank you again for calling in. All right. Have a great day. And
have a
guys,
great day. I'll see you soon.
Great. This is Women of the World again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.